So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar. Zero patience for slow walkers. Those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night. Have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Mega is an improvised satire from the staff of a fictional megachurch.
We are here, the Lord, we are here, and we're ready to podcast.
What is going on, folks? We got a banger episode for you today. It's a day episode, which I know many people enjoy. It's a day in gray. The fabulous duo back together again with a really special guest, Brian Recker, who, if you don't know him, you will after this episode. He is playing himself, and he did a really good job dealing with all of Gray's bullshit and actually answering him with respect.
He's a sweetie. He was so fun to have on. I am very glad to have been introduced to him. The algorithm fed him to me on socials when I was still on social media.
Sometimes the algorithm it has good taste.
Yeah, because he's about to put a book out. I suggest you follow him online. He's so fun. He's a delight, and he's at B Recker. Berecker.
That's right.
Brecker. And he has a book coming out. It's ready for pre-order now. It's called Hellbent, and it's really, I'm going to be reading it. I'm looking forward to it. It's about reclaiming a spirituality of love rather than of hell and punishment. And I'm excited to read it because I tried to get him to talk about this a little bit when we were interviewing him, when we were in character and he was being himself. What a champ. I was trying to get him to talk about how little the Bible actually says about hell and where does that ideology come from and is it in fact biblical, and it fascinates me. So I can't wait for Hellbent, and I'm excited for you to be introduced to Brian. And we're doing a big push for Supercast right now, where we moved over to Supercast. It's a great platform where we're able to have different feeds. We have our mini episodes over there that have always been behind the paywall because those are for supporters. And I got a great message this week from someone who just became a Supercast supporter and said, I've been listening to your pod for ages, finally subscribed when you moved over to Supercast, and I love the bonus episodes and series as much as I've loved the main show. Thanks for making me laugh, and happy to be a tithing member of the congregation now. And that makes me so happy because I love the minis, and I love the Rise and Fall, and now we're able to have separate feeds over there. We're going to be able to have side projects all living over there on Supercast. So please, if you've ever considered it, it would mean the world to us. It would make it possible for us to continue doing Mega. We're trying to get 1,000 Supercast members because Greg read a great article that if you have 1,000 true supporters, you can actually make a living off of this. And we're really trying to do it.
Let's
so
prove
please, it's only $6.66 a month. I think it's even less if you do the member bundle.
That's right. You get a discount if you sign up for the year. Head on over to mega.supercast.com, and we hope you enjoy this great episode with Brian Recker.
Thanks, B. Recker.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
Hi, I'm Jay Labont, and this is Mega from Twin Hills Community Church, where every single week my mom, Hallie Labont, and Gray Haas are normally giving our mega church a tiny family feel by introducing you to members of the church staff and community. But today I've brought someone from the wider Christian community all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina. He is an influencer. That's actually how I found him on TikTok and Instagram. His name is Brian Recker. He's like a theologian and an author and a thinker. And I think the ability to critically think and also honor the sacred and we'll get into all that. And joining me is my co-host. He's the youth pastor for our high school ministry called Climax. Please welcome Gray Haas.
I don't doubt a bit because Jesus is lit. How are you, Day?
Oh man, I'm so good. I'm so glad to introduce our guest today. Please put your hands together for my new friend, Brian Recker.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, welcome to the program, Brian. Brian has a book coming out in October, and it's about hell and what we believe about hell, what we know to be true about Jesus and Satan and Lucifer and how all this stuff works.
Well, I am really honored to have another bro in Christ just like absolutely rolling up. Brian, it's nice to meet you, and I'm just so pumped and excited that Day is actually getting interested in other people who are into Christ like we are.
Yeah, man. Me and Dave have had some really good conversations about Jesus.
Oh, this is
great. It's mostly like, first thing I said to Brian was like, well, I was like, well, what do you believe? Because like, are you agnostic? Are you atheist? Are you just fluid? Are you a Christian? Are you a believer? What do you say? Because like, it's hard because you don't really know exactly what someone means when they say they're a Christian, right? Like that might mean that they're in a MAGA hat and they want to like beat up gay people or something. You don't know. You know what I mean?
What?
Yeah, it's true. Unfortunately, some of the worst people are Christians.
I know, I've said it all the time, and I'm just glad that we definitely can just bro down on Christ and the vibes of Christ because, I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just important to me for people to know that Jesus stood with the poor. You know, Jesus, he said, woe to the rich, and he was on the side of the poor and the vulnerable, the marginalized. And I think that message is so important today in a country where the marginalized people are still often being attacked by Christians, you know, who want to get immigrants out of their country and want to take away queer rights. And so I just really believe it's important that people know that that's not what Jesus is like.
Okay. Yeah, man, because I feel like one of the most important passages in the entire Bible is Matthew 25 of like, I was naked and you clothed me. I was hungry and you fed me. And, you know, like, and the Pharisees were all like, but we believed all the same stuff. And Jesus was like, no, dog, I don't know who you are because you're the one who stepped over my body, you know, when I was like beat up on the ground. And I just get really excited about someone who, you know, I don't know, I guess like sees the same things in Jesus that I do because, you know, Timothy says if the book is not serving to correct you and show you how you're wrong, you're using the Bible wrong. And I think most Christians are using the Bible to show how they're right. And the Bible itself says this is for correction. It's to show you how you're wrong, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Matthew 25, Day. That's one of my favorite passages too. Jesus in that passage, conservatives yet love to use that actually about hell because he says that the righteous will go to eternal life and the others to eternal punishment. But who he's actually talking about in that passage has nothing to do with believing the right thing about Jesus or sort of becoming a Christian or even being born again or believing in what Jesus did on the cross. None of that. He just says it's about how you treat people in this world. He's talking about our behaviors towards the most or the least fortunate people, the hungry, like you mentioned, and the imprisoned and that sort of thing. And that's really what Jesus wants from us. It's not about trying to turn everybody into a Christian. It's about building a world where the poor are lifted up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, some of this stuff is pretty interesting. Some of it's a bit boring, but I do think that what we have to remember, guys, is that Jesus, number one, and I totally agree about the poor stuff. I agree about the immigrant stuff to a point. You know, I still want people to, come into the country, obey the laws, because, render unto Caesar. He said that. Yeah. And so even if you're a guy coming across the border, I still want you to render unto Caesar, which means sign up, do the thing. I am an immigrant. And, this country has been awesome to me because I'm the kind of guy that, played by the rules and did it legally. So, that's one thing that we need to remember is, we'll get into all this because Brian, I'm an author as well, also an influencer.
Yeah, cool.
Right now, I've written a couple pamphlets that are going around that are pretty, and also PDF downloads. But I'm definitely doing definitely doing a lot of writing. I'm doing a lot of videos, just like 8-second sermons and things like that on TikTok. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades. So I know we have a lot of commonality in that. But I just want us to remember, guys, that Jesus said, you got to obey the laws of the land, didn't he?
Yeah, no, I don't think Jesus ever said that. In fact, Jesus was actually executed as an enemy of the state, as a criminal. So that's how Jesus died, for not obeying the laws.
Whoa. Who said render unto Caesar what is Caesar's? Is that Paul?
Jesus did say that. Yeah, Jesus did say that, but he also said render unto gods what is God's in that same phrase. And so, it's interesting because in that passage, that's where the Pharisees were trying to get out of taxes, and they were trying to say, we don't have to pay taxes, right? And so he picks up a coin and says, give to Caesar what's Caesar's. But it's strange to me because conservative Christians are always trying to say that they shouldn't pay their taxes. The reality is we live in a democracy where we can shape the laws. And so while certainly overall should people obey just laws? Yes. But like Martin Luther King Jr., Jesus disobeyed unjust laws. And since, like I said, we live in a democracy, we should be trying to shape the laws to actually be more welcoming, more fair, more just, and especially towards the people that our system tends to chew up and spit out.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're doing that right now. But I think the other thing that we forget, Brian, is yes, Martin Luther King Jr. Well, I mean, what did Martin Luther King Sr. say? And sometimes I bet his dad was going, hey, bud, I bet you need to reel it in a bit, or maybe in time, maybe we do it a bit more slowly because that's what, when you get young people like you and Day and me, to be honest, sometimes we can be a little bit too eager to want to change things. And I like to say to my teens who come to Climax, guys, all in good time. Maybe we take it slow. Just like, and I'll say it, I'll bring it up here. You can't, like when you get married, you're going to have all that married stuff that you get to do. But right now, I don't want you thinking about it. Yeah. I don't want you dealing with it. And I don't want you even considering it. And so sometimes you need a voice of reason, right?
Yeah, it just might be like an agree to disagree issue here, Gray. It sounds a lot like what you're describing sounds like what Martin Luther King Jr., he accused the white moderates of actually being the biggest barrier to justice as opposed to the sort of rabid segregationists, because the people who are saying slow down, they weren't really reckoning with the fact that people were dying, people were languishing in injustice. And it just seems to me like our calling is to actually center those people and take steps to speak up for people that don't have a voice.
Are the white moderates a band? What is that?
I'd say the white moderates are like my mom, she drives a Lexus, but, still works in a soup kitchen, I don't know. Is moderate like a political term, Brian?
Yeah, I think that I'm just talking about people who theoretically want justice, but they just don't want anything in their lives to change. They don't want.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that's important.
It's really what stands out to me is that I didn't realize it's the actual words of Jesus saying, like, "Yo, pay taxes, man. It's just the system." And yet, all churches in the United States of America are not for profit.
Well,
meaning they
but
don't pay
that's
taxes.
different, Day, because churches shouldn't pay taxes. Am I right, Brian?
Well, Jesus said they should. Everyone should.
Well, he didn't say churches, though.
You know, I don't have a strong opinion about this. I think that what I don't like is that many churches that are tax exempt, the reason for that is to free them up to do charity. But unfortunately, a lot of that money goes to all kinds of things but that, a lot of performances and entertainment. And so that makes me sad, certainly. That's not like my biggest thing is taxing the churches. I think that we should probably tax the rich and the billionaires. I feel pretty strongly about that.
Yeah. All my homies hate billionaires. I'll tell you what. Here's the thing. I wanted to so I'm really excited to read Brian's book. It's called Hellbent, but it's talking about hell in context of the Bible. What did it mean? What were the different like symbols? What was literal? What was symbolic? I want to know more about Lucifer. Like I've never understood like why. Like, what exactly was the big crime that took place in heaven? Like, the angels were there and God was there. And what is it exactly that Lucifer did that got him kicked out? Because I ended up reading Milton's epic Paradise Lost.
Boring.
And I feel like so much of what most modern day Christians believe to be true about Satan and hell comes from Paradise Lost. And they don't even realize that. It's just sort of seeped into the lexicon and the narrative, and people think that that's in the Bible. But I've scoured the Bible for stuff about hell and for stuff about Satan, and it's like few and far between. Like we know in Job that Satan was like hanging out with God in the throne room, and they were like, "Yo, what's up?" And they were kind of like having a back and forth. That seems weird to me that Satan hangs out in the throne room, if indeed that's even what's happening. And you have the rich man who's like in hell, and it seems like there's some kind of channel open between heaven and hell, and they're like, you could be here, but you're choosing to be there. There's that one. And then there's like the fall in the beginning, like we said, what doesn't even happen in Genesis. I don't even know where the fall is referenced to you. I'll just hand it over to you.
So you just have mentioned a whole bunch of images and pictures in the Bible. But one thing that we really miss when we're reading the Bible with Western eyes, Enlightenment eyes, we often approach the Bible like it's a scientific textbook. So much of the language of the Bible is metaphorical. It's called apocalyptic hyperbole, a lot of that. And so things that are actually real world events are often described with symbolic or spiritual language. In fact, you mentioned Lucifer several times. A lot of people think that there's a character named Lucifer who falls from heaven and that becomes Satan. When in reality, the prophecy in the Bible that refers to Lucifer is actually talking about the king of Assyria. Lucifer means morning star, which was one of the king of Assyria's nicknames. And it was talking about the fall of Assyria to the Babylonian Empire. Real historical events are often talked about in the Bible in apocalyptic ways that really heighten the tension, heighten the stakes, and remind us that everything is spiritual. When countries are going to war and doing injustice, they are, in fact, I believe, enacting dark spiritual forces in the world because every life is sacred. And so the things that harm life are spiritual. And so the world is also always ending somewhere. So many of the passages that sound like the end of the world are actually just talking about the end of a particular era in history, the fall of a country or the fall of a temple. And it does feel like the world is ending when your country is falling apart. But the Bible itself is actually much more earthy and material and often talking about real world events, not eternal sort of heaven and hell spiritual events.
Well, and I will jump in here because I think, Brian, you and I agree in a way, but like on Twitter X, sometimes we call guys like you symbol boys, which is you're always trying to make a symbol out of it. But what me and my bros a lot of times are talking about is, yes, it could be a symbol, but also it could literally be literal. It could be the same side of a coin where, yes, maybe there was a guy named Lucifer Morningstar who was was a Syrian, and he was going to fall, but also that is also happening in the spiritual realm. And this is, you can read it kind of like, I've done a lot of deep kind of reflection about this. It could be both, couldn't it?
I mean, yeah, like, listen, I'm kind of agnostic as to whether there's like a guy named Satan. I don't think the Bible's really conclusive about that. I personally think that the point Jesus told us of the whole Bible, he actually told us the whole point of the whole Bible was to help us love our neighbors as ourselves and love God. And so I hold on to whatever leads me into that. I kind of like the term symbol boys because the reality is I think that there's beauty in recognizing symbol and metaphor. I think that metaphors are some of the most powerful things. They shape our reality. They tell us what's important and what's dangerous. The book of Revelation, is full of symbols that you definitely don't take literally. In fact, it often bugs me out that the same evangelicals who think that hell is literal as opposed to a metaphor, they see a dragon in the book of Revelation and a beast with all these heads. Jesus is pictured as a lamb covered in eyes. There's symbol after symbol after symbol, and they understand that all of these things are just pictures and metaphors and symbols. But when it comes to hell, all of a sudden they think it's literal. And it doesn't make any sense because we actually do know a symbol when we see one.
Well, I mean, I do have to push back, but I will agree with you. Metaphor is important. I mean, last summer when we built a skate park for the homeless, I did a whole message about, yes, I've got a skateboard, but what if it didn't have wheels on it? And would you have any fun if you had a skateboard without wheels? Wheels are like Jesus in this metaphor. And I think that really helped people understand, like, you're not going to a skate park if you don't have wheels on your skateboard. You're just sliding around on a board. And so I think they can be powerful, and I think you can have powerful metaphors. Now, I don't want Day to get the impression that hell is a metaphor because, I guess my question is, if it's a metaphor, what's the point? You know what I mean? What did Jesus even die for?
Yeah. What's the point of Jesus if hell is a metaphor? Well, do you think Jesus has a point?
Well, I think he had a bunch of points. 2 went in his hands and 2 went in his feet, and 1 went in his side. But I do think that
he made some great points too.
Yeah, he made great points, and he did get pointed.
I guess I'm a little confused because if I was only interested in Jesus because he saved me from hell, it just seems like that doesn't add a lot of value to my life. That's just about what I could get out of,
Really? I mean, what about the relationship? I mean, and this is what I tell Day all the time. It's a relationship. We're in a relationship. We all have these relationships. Jesus's relationship is the best one because, yes, he died for all these sins that you had, and he pulled you right out of that. In your case, you say it's a metaphor. I would say it's a very real place that, he kind of plucked you out of.
I would say that the relationship, the word choice of relationship has always sort of messed with me because I don't really understand it that way because I don't experience it that way. Like, if you say you have a relationship with Jesus and you mean that as a metaphor, it makes sense to me. But if you mean it literally, I don't know what that means because a relationship is like someone that I communicate with, that I wrestle with or whatever. And I've never understood.
Wrestle?
Well, like, that Jacob had the, opportunity to actually physically wrestle with an angel or was that what was that, Brian?
What was happening with Jacob? Yeah, I don't know. I think the world is vast and mysterious, and yeah, there's an amazing story in the Bible of the character Jacob wrestling with God. I do think that more than likely Jacob himself is a mythological figure meant to kind of teach us about how God works in the world. But the historicity of Jacob is, I think, a lot of times I was taught growing up in conservative Christianity that the only way to appreciate the Bible is if you took every story as woodenly literal. And if you didn't see it as a sheer historical fact, then you weren't taking it seriously, you weren't respecting the Bible, and it couldn't really change you and it couldn't help you. Yeah. But what I know is that it's actually stories that help us and change us. And whether or not Jacob really lived in real life doesn't actually affect my life at all. I think I want to wrestle with the same God that Jacob wrestled with. And I do believe that I'm in a relationship with God, but not based on the fact that unless I'm in a relationship with God, God is going to punish me. Because in my mind, that's an unhealthy relationship, Gray. I think that if you're in a relationship with God, and yet if you were to back out a little bit, or your love would fade, or you weren't in on that relationship, God, the alternative to that is eternal torment and punishment. Then that relationship is actually rooted in coercion. I believe that every single one of us is born into relationship with God as our birthright. Just like how Jesus was spoken of over his, the Father spoke over Jesus, "You are my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased," before Jesus had healed anybody or done anything. And to me, all of us wake up every morning to that reality that we are fully loved and accepted by God. And there's nothing that we could do to change that. And that's grace. That's the message that I still love in the heart of Christianity, is that each of us is fully loved exactly for who we are. And there's nothing that we have to do to earn that or deserve that. And I still believe that.
Missing out on family time because of all the noise? Enjoy the moment without straining to keep up with the conversation.
Wow, what a beautiful sunset.
Discover Nuance Audio, the new invisible hearing solution that's built into your glasses. Discreet, comfortable, and easy to use. Nuance Audio glasses help you hear better and reduce background noise, so you can get back to enjoying time with your loved ones. Find a store near you at nuanceaudio.com.
Hank's the family fixer, always with his tool belt. But living with prostate cancer, he needed help. He asked his doctor about Xtandi and enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit Xtandi.com.
So would you say that maybe it wasn't that God was like, okay, I require blood sacrifice to get in the mood for forgiveness, so I have to kill my son for him to be the sacrificial lamb for all time, for all humans, because they have a sin problem that I can't overlook unless it's covered with blood? Do you think maybe it wasn't like that was the dynamic, but instead it was just that Jesus got killed by the state for being a disruptor?
Now, I don't claim to have some vast ability to know exactly what happened in the spiritual realm at the moment of Jesus' death.
I can speak to that, but go ahead. Yeah.
What's that?
No,
I'll speak to that, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess for me, I don't see the cross as a transaction to get God to like us. It wasn't that God required blood. That's always us. Yeah, people are sinners because we require blood. We demand violence, often for people that are different from us. We scapegoat people for being different, for not believing what we believe, for being lesser than, and we put people in categories and we often do violence to them. And our systems are still crucifying people. And Jesus stood in solidarity with the poor, with the marginalized. He lifted up the people that the systems were crushing. And when you do that, when you stand in solidarity with those who are crucified by the systems of this world, you're going to get crucified too. And so Jesus did stand up for the people who nobody else was standing up for. And like many others in history who have done that, he died. And I think that's beautiful. And it calls us into the true heart of God, which is always to stand up for the poor.
Now, we keep getting a bit distracted by the poor. And before we get into that, because they can be distracting, I do want to go back to a word that you used, Brian, and I think I found it. You said, I don't think Jesus died on the cross, or you said something like this about, you used the word like us, for God to like us. And, you're an influencer. I understand you're driven by likes. And I am too, because likes feel good. But what I want to ask us today, what about love? I mean, we're talking about we're not just talking about likes, guys. We're talking about the big L love. And God loves us like nobody loves us. And the reason that he did it, the whole thing, the whole crucifixion thing, is he's going, this is how much I love you, right? I'm actually gonna have to have my number one son die for your sins because you guys messed it up so bad. And that's how much I love you, not like you. That's how much I love you. And so when I'm thinking about all of this, and you know, I don't think I'm coerced into it because I just see that and I'm going, wow, this guy really loves me. And I don't even have to worry about the whole hell piece because I don't even really think about it because I know I'm saved.
What about other people who don't know about that story?
I know it's a bummer, isn't it? And that's why, kind of going back to the whole thing with, you know, churches not being taxed and putting on awesome programming, is because when somebody comes into Twin Hills and they see the level of programming that we have, when they see, I mean, a few weeks ago, Brian, I don't know if you know the internet, it was cuffing season, and I had a bunch of teens literally cuffing themselves to the cross to show how much they love God. I mean, if you're 17 years old and you could be rich, poor, in the middle, I don't know, and you see that level of dedication and just absolutely sick programming, you're going to go, I'm not afraid of hell. I just want to be a part of that. Do you know what I mean?
So as long as you're in a community that has a church with really sick programming, you can hear this message about how God did a transaction on a cross so that you don't have to go to hell when you die.
Oh, yeah. I think you nailed it.
I think that is the mission of Twin Hills. I think you just said it word for word.
So for me, that is the mission of most churches, to convert people to their religion, to save them from hell.
Yes.
And I just think, unfortunately, that's a really twisted view of other people too. Because when we primarily view people that don't agree with us, that don't have the same beliefs as us, as people who need to be converted, people that need to be saved, people that need to be changed, it's very difficult to actually love them right where they are, because they're really projects, not friends. You know, one of Jesus's stories that is most famous and one of my favorites is a story Jesus told called the Good Samaritan, which was about
it's a banger.
It's a banger. You and I agree on that, Gray. The Good Samaritan is a parable about a man from another cultural background that was actually hated by the Jewish people. The Samaritans were hated not only ethnically by the Jewish people, but also religiously, because they were technically heretics. They did not believe in the God of Israel. They worshiped at the wrong temple. They worshiped the wrong God. But when Jesus tells a story about a man beaten on the side of the road, the Samaritan is the one that saves and helps and rescues that man. In other words, in the story, Jesus's message isn't just that we should care about Samaritans and we should help Samaritans. It's actually that those people that we're tempted to think of as the cultural other, the ones who don't have it all together, they don't have the answers, they're probably going to hell. Those people actually have something to contribute to us. They can save us when we stop othering them and actually start listening to them and recognizing that God cannot be gatekept. It's not like God is just for one type of person. God is for everybody. And when I open up my heart to other people, I actually experience more of God when I receive from them. So some of the very people that you're saying need to be saved, need to be converted, need to come and meet God at the Twin Cities Church, Twin Hillies Church, Twin Wheelies Church. What was it?
Oh yeah, we do. I mean, we do have wheelie. You can do wheelies if you want on because at the skate park. But.
It's Twin Hills. Our symbol kind of looks like boobs.
No, it doesn't, Hallie. Sorry.
Twin Peaks Church.
No, it doesn't, Dave. Go on.
The people that you think need to come there and get saved, I think those are the people that you need to be listening to.
That's so interesting, man. And honestly, I never, like, a lot of times when I hear the way that, you know, a lot of like pastors, like big time Christian influencers, like they talk about this like incredible love that God loves you in a way you've never been loved before and all this stuff. I feel almost like it's that thing of like centering ourselves where like there is this deity, there is this sacred essence of love, and we have reduced it down to this deity that is so totally obsessed with this one species of mammals on planet Earth in the grand cosmos. There's this one species, they're bipeds. They have like these hairs coming out of their craniums and groins and armpits, and they're fleshy and they're like sort of like tall and lanky. And this deity is so totally obsessed with their love. I must get the, like, can you imagine if we did that to some like one species? If we were just like, oh my God, chipmunks must love us as humans or we'll kill them all, man. I mean, I think like that's the like thing that I think it does feel a little Stockholm syndrome-y. If hell is a real thing, then any relationship you have with this God is going to be like Stockholm syndrome. It's being in love with your captor, or it's just unhealthy. Like if I was dating someone and they were like, without me, you're garbage, and I'm the only thing that makes you good, I'd be like, this might be an abusive relationship. If I was dating someone and they were like, if you're not deeply in love with me, then you're going to die a tormented death, I'd be like, this is not healthy, man.
Well, you're not going to date anyone talking like this, Day. I'll tell you that.
What does the Bible actually say about hell? Like, was hell a place in Judea or something that was real and where they were burning garbage or something? What does the Bible actually say about hell?
So the Bible says a lot of different things about hell. I quite a few of them are contradictory. There's not one clear picture of hell. For instance, the Old Testament doesn't have any conception of hell. The word that's used in the Old Testament that sometimes gets translated as hell is Sheol, which means the grave, or really it was a metaphor for death itself. And actually righteous people like Job and Jacob are said to go down to Sheol because we all go into death, all to the same place.
Whoa.
In the New Testament, there's a few words that are translated hell. Hades is translated, that's really the same concept as Sheol, because the Greek word, or the Hebrew word Sheol is translated as Hades, which really, again, just means death. But Jesus used a really interesting word called Gehenna. And so a lot of preachers really fixate on this word Gehenna that Jesus used, and they'll say that Jesus talked about hell more than anybody because he talked about Gehenna more than anybody. He used that word more than anybody else. I think he might actually be the only person that uses the word Gehenna in the New Testament. But Jesus, when he was talking about Gehenna, I don't believe was talking about a place in the afterlife that God's going to punish you if you don't believe in Jesus properly. The word Gehenna actually means the Valley of Hinnom. It was a real location right outside of Jerusalem that Jesus's listeners would have known about. Sort of like if I was in New York City preaching about and saying people are going to get tossed into Central Park, people would know that this is a real place. So their mental picture of it is a lot different than ours. Our mental picture, like you mentioned, Day, is more formed by Paradise Lost than what's actually said in the Bible.
Yeah.
When Jesus talks about Gehenna, it actually sounds a lot more like death and destruction than torture or torment. And my personal belief is that Jesus's words about Gehenna were prophesying the destruction of Jerusalem. Because by the time the Gospels were written, that had already happened. Jesus lived around AD 30, but in AD 70, Jerusalem was completely destroyed and the temple was burned to the ground by Roman armies. And so when Matthew, for example, was writing to his Jewish audience about 10 years after that happened during the 80s, he was referencing that destruction of Jerusalem. And so when Jesus is warning you that unless you change your ways, unless you turn around, you're all going to get thrown into Gehenna, he was talking about the way that as the Roman armies slaughtered people in Jerusalem, their bodies were tossed over the city walls into the valley of Gehenna. This was the ruins of war. Talking again, this is apocalyptic hyperbole for the way that when we live outside of the love of God, our actions return on us in this world. Jesus actually cares about the kind of world that we're building. Is it the kind of world that leads to flourishing, or the kind that leads to destruction and violence and othering and going to war and slaughtering people who are different from us?
I mean, this is a lot of, yes, but again, a lot of symbol boy stuff in here because, maybe Jesus is going, hey, I don't have a way to describe it other than saying Gehenna. It's like when I say, hey, when I tell my teens, when I threaten the teens and say, you better stop, going in, going in the bathroom and, making purple, guys and ladies should not be in the same bathroom. I'll say something like, I'll take you out to Noblesville and I'll drop you off there because I know they don't want to be out there. So maybe we can agree that Jesus is kind of saying it as like, yeah, you don't want to go to Gehenna because believe me, guys, you better believe in me because I'll drop you off out there and that is not where you want to be. So this is kind of, again, Day, I just don't want you to get into the idea that it's just a symbol. It's as real as Noblesville. Hell is as real as Ghana.
Well, I mean, maybe as long as, Brian's a symbol boy, maybe you would like to tell him about, Gray started a new fashion line. He has a product called Riffy Boy jeans, and they're wide on the top and tight on the bottom.
Yeah, I told you, Day, I'm actually not, I don't have a sponsorship with them anymore. We had a bit of an issue because Riffy Boy decided that they wanted the jeans to be big on the bottom and small on the top. I said no, and anyway.
But if they're wide on the top and tight on the bottom, then the only way you can wear them is like with a suspender.
Yeah, but what does this have to do with symbol?
Well, this is a question, Brian, that I want to ask you. Is that is the essence of why you wrote this book the fact that if a lot of just plain old, I don't mean like plain old American Christians, but just your average American Christian who's like, this is the best moral way to live. This is community. This is these beautiful standards that create more love, joy, peace, patience in the world and all that. Like that person is the reason you wrote your book for us to question that, like, if hell is not real, if we don't consider hell a real place of eternal torment where people will live in eternity in tortured conditions with no relief for eternity, if we remove that idea, then like what is Christianity? Because does that change what it means? Because I like I said before, me and my homies all hate billionaires, and like,
why do you keep saying that? There's some of them are good.
Because honestly, if profit is king, which is the world we live in capitalism, we live in moneyism. And I think a lot of Christians consider what is just an economic system. I think they actually consider it to be like a moral authority or something, but it's just an economic system. But it's one that I believe is like eating us from the inside out. But if profit is king, which it is in the world in which we currently live, part of why me and my homies all hate billionaires is because billionaires are coming to the point now where they are asking, what are humans for? Because like, if humans aren't creating labor and all these things, like what are humans for? And billionaires aren't really able to answer that question much anymore. So it doesn't really matter. I'm kind of like, I don't know what humans are for. I'm here to have a human experience, maybe. And it's all I know that there is. I don't know. But is it the same thing? Like where, if the essence of evangelicalism is to profit by having more people and having everyone believe the same, this like monoculture, which we forget about it. We know what monoculture does to agriculture and all these other things, creates purity culture, it's a real problem. Sorry, I'm talking about too many things at this point now. But if like in the same way billionaires want to know what people are for, like is it that if you remove hell, then we don't know what Jesus is for?
Day, your brain is really going places. Yeah. So I really resonate with what you just said. And for me, even that question of what are people for? What is humans for? To me, that's like the fundamental question of religion, and even why spirituality still matters, because I think we all do want to know what people are for. And I think that's what Jesus lived for. And yeah, it's true for a lot of people. They think what Jesus lived for was really just to die to save us from hell. But right. I think actually he lived to show us what it means to be human. When Jesus is described by John at the beginning of John 1, he calls him the Word, or the Logos, which is a concept from Greek philosophy. And the Logos really means the underlying principle of reality. In other words, the meaning of life, the blueprint. That's really what Jesus is he shows us what a true human life is. And even the idea of what it means that Jesus is God, for me, that just means Jesus is the one who shows us the way of what life is all about, of what God wants from us, of what love looks like embodied, what a life of love looks like in this world. And so, yeah, for me, Christianity is not just about a get out of hell free card. It's not just about a punishment avoidance in the next life. It's about what's this life for? What am I supposed to be doing with this life? And the way is to follow Jesus, which is a life of love laid down especially for the least of these. And that really is, I believe, the spirituality that can save the world from hell. I still do believe that. But to me, that is a metaphor. that actually Jesus wants us to show the way of the kingdom of God, not the way that leads to the languishing of Gehenna, war-torn streets, a place of destruction. That's what Gehenna is. And actually, that's what a lot of the world looks like. And a lot of the times, Christians create that world.
Right. I mean, I've been in Noblesville.
They're often on the side of war.
Well, if you think about it, Jesus is the one who said the kingdom of heaven is now. And maybe what he meant by that, I don't know, because obviously it's been translated from Aramaic and whatever, but Aramaic into Koine Greek into whatever. So, but if he was saying the kingdom of heaven is now, maybe if the kingdom of heaven can be now, maybe meaning to be present is to be to be kind of like touching source, or like touching or part of the divine, or having a sacred experience is only available to you when you're fully present. And maybe if that idea of heaven, connectedness, belonging is available to us now, then it stands to reason that hell is also available to us now. And so we can be living in either heaven right now, or we could be living in hell right now, based on, like, we know that everyone's, you go to a party that has 20 people at it. That wasn't one party. That was 20 different parties. You're going to hear 20 different stories from those 20 people who went to the one party, right? Like, everyone's living in their own reality. We're projecting our mood, our beliefs, everything out in front of us. And then we're experiencing that, like, if I wake up and I'm like, man, everything sucks, and I go through my day like, this sucks and that sucks, and she sucks and they suck, then I really do experience like this really sucky world. But like, if I'm kind of like, yo, man, there are blossoms on the trees, and like, I just saw my first robin redbreast, and the daffodils are like unfurling in the dirt, man, this is a miracle. It's kind of like you can live like seeing miracles and then experiencing them, or, or I think I do know a lot of people whose life is an eternal hell.
Because they don't know Jesus. I think I just blew your mind there, didn't I? I mean, how many pages is this book, Brian?
I haven't seen a final page count. There's like an index and footnotes, and I think they said it was around 270 after all that stuff, but
really?
Don't be intimidated by the length there.
Okay,
Gray.
that's a pretty long pamphlet.
It's an easy read.
I've written some pamphlets about that
I
length.
can't wait to read it. Are you going to like do a tour and readings and stuff? Are you afraid that people will turn on you?
I don't know. I do want to get around. Yeah, I'm going to do a tour. I'm going to try to be preaching in various churches this fall, and hopefully be in some bookstores and that sort of thing to do some events. I don't have it all sorted out just yet. Hopefully people don't turn on me. I do want people to really reckon with, I think, what's their spirituality all about. And if it is really just a fear-based punishment avoidance, to consider that that's a deficient spirituality and it doesn't actually reflect the spirituality of Jesus. And so hopefully it's helpful for people.
I wonder how much of that is like vindictive, where like there are bad people and you want bad things to happen to these bad people. Like, does it help Christians be like, oh, well, they're going to burn in hell? Like, it makes me feel better that I'm not going to go to hell, and it makes me feel better that this bad person is going to go to hell.
Yeah, I think we thrive. We all love binary thinking. It's safe. We love certitude. That's feeling that we know that we're right, that we're the ones with the answers. But that is so destructive. That certitude and that sense of binary thinking and tribalism, that we've got to think about it. It's Christians who believed that they had the keys to heaven and hell, that their truth led only to heaven and everyone else's truth led to hell. That mindset is what fueled colonialism. They colonized the world because of that. Telling people that, they justified even genocide and slavery because when colonizers kidnapped Black people from Africa, they told themselves, well, at least they were going to give them the gospel. So yes, they might be in a bad state physically, but spiritually, we've got heaven. So we're actually rescuing them from hell. Even as they kidnapped them from their home country, they said, well, they're pagans anyway, and they're going to die and go to hell. What we're doing is actually a good thing. So that mindset where we put people into the category of damned and decide that only my way is the one that's blessed by God, but God's going to punish everybody else. It's actually been one of the most destructive forces in all of history. And so, I hope it goes away.
Definitely. I think one of the most destructive verses in all the Bible was that we have dominion over the earth, because I think it has just made us treat this gorgeous place like such garbage, and like we feel like we're separate from it, but we're a product of it. In the same way an apple tree makes apples, the earth peopled, like we are the fruits of this like gorgeous creature, this living thing. and we're just destroying it. Again, I'll get on my soapbox that I think Christians should be like the most active environmentalists, but I don't know.
Man, I think you're absolutely right. I do believe humans have a special place in the world simply because we are the earth, but we have the capacity to reflect on ourselves and what's happening around us in a way that the other creatures of the earth do not. But that puts on us the onus of stewardship because we can actually reflect on our behavior and what we're doing and how it's affecting everyone and everything else. And yet, despite that fact, we are often the most destructive creatures, and that shows that we're being poor stewards of this earth.
Definitely.
Well,
man.
I guess I'll just say that, after all this conversation, and you've really brought up some interesting points, Brian and Day, every once in a while. And even though you brought up some good stuff, and even though ultimately you're both wrong, I do think that these are the conversations that I'm willing to have because, really at the end of the day, I think people will listen to this and they'll go, wow, what's the simpler version? I'm a big fan of Occam's razor because I'm also pretty in philosophy and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And I'm just like, simple version, always the better one. And the one that I'm putting forward is just love Jesus, love people, and then you're not going to go to hell. You guys are getting all into this other stuff, which is fine. But at the end of the day, I think when we're all standing together with God, He's going to go, keep it simple, man. And, that's kind of just, and I think I just want you two to remember, don't get too complicated.
Love people, love Jesus. What'd you say? I dig that. I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down for love
Love
people.
Jesus, love people. Yeah. I mean, to love people to a point, and definitely making sure that they are Christians, because I think those are the ones that are going to love you back.
Yeah, well, I think that it's pretty tough to love someone while you're actively trying to change them. But I have experienced a lot of that love from people. And I try to tell myself, when I'm talking to a Christian, and even my parents are fundamentalist Christians, and my parents actually think that I'm probably going to hell. And that can be hard. And they bring up my apostasy and that sort of thing. But what I try to remember in those moments is that it's a hell of a thing to believe that people that you love are going to hell. And sometimes when they are actively trying to change me and get me to be converted or change my mind, I have to remember that's the best they can do. That's the best they can love me because of some of the things that they believe that people who believe different than them are going to die and go to hell. So that gives me grace and even a little bit of pity for people who believe, who are forced to believe, who are burdened with the belief that people who disagree with them are going to go to hell. It's a pretty messed up thing to have to think. And so I feel a little sorry for you, actually, Gray. And I hope you the best as you try to love people despite that.
Well, and I feel sorry for you, Brian, because at least, when you die, you and all the other symbol boys think, I'm going to just show up in Central Park.
Many thanks to Brian Recker for being on the program. Go follow him, buy his book. He's doing the Lord's work. Of course, if you want more episodes like this one, the best way to support Mega is on Supercast. Head on over to mega.supercast.com and get ad-free listening, plus a bunch of other great perks. That's mega.supercast.com, and the link is in the show notes.